I mean, I think I can guess what you're about to tell me, but should MPs get a pay rise of 2.9%?
Well, you know, when MPs are demanding that workers are taking a pay cut at the present time, MPs on salaries currently are living in a different world to the average worker at the present stage. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by this, but I think people will be very, very angry.
MPs are workers, just like anybody else, and they have a job for a much shorter time, usually. A much shorter period of time than people who go into something that's a proper career, you get what I mean. A teacher for 40 years, or a nurse or a doctor for 40 years, for example, or working on the railways, etc. So shouldn't they be well paid for their time in office, making massive decisions for the nation?
Well, I think ultimately many of the people in the front line would argue that, you know, they're not doing the kind of jobs that keep people alive, that run the country on a day-to-day basis. And if they're public servants, why don't they match their commitment to society and the economy and live on the same wages as the average worker in Britain? When Dave Nellist, a member of the Socialist Party, was an MP in Parliament before he was expelled from the Labour Party, he stood as a workers' MP on a workers' wage. And I think that's the tradition that would be well supported by workers in Parliament. If we had genuine representation of ordinary workers, of health workers, of ambulance workers, of factory workers in Parliament, they'd be doing a lot more to sort the economic crisis. Can I just ask,
Nick? Yeah, but Nick, they have the same rights as anybody else to stand for election. I mean, you could argue, therefore, that the fact that we don't have more nurses or factory workers or people in Parliament is their own fault because they're not getting elected and they're not bothering to stand for it, whereas MPs are. So doesn't that defeat your argument?
Well, I think, sadly, for many people, Labour is no longer a party of the working class and of the trade union movement. The fact that Keir Starmer refuses to stand on a picket line with striking workers at the moment doesn't give workers great confidence that Labour is fighting in their interests. And I think, you know, many of the arguments that we would make at the present time is if workers are going to have their voice heard in Parliament, then the trade union should stand candidates who will voice the needs of working class people.
I get that. Let's just bring it back a little bit to the actual pace. If I get there's the bigger picture element to it, and I completely understand what you're saying there. But just in terms of this announcement today, the breaking news today, 2.9% is that pay increase. That's going to be, I think, laughably, actually, from April the 1st. But they would say, MPs would say, well, look, this is just due to the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority. We have got no say over this, and it's a very similar body to the one that is recommending the kind of pay rises that nurses have been offered. So, realistically, they're just abiding by the same rules as the nurses, aren't they? Shouldn't the nurses accept what's been offered by this independent body?
Well, no, that's the point, isn't it? Nurses have made it clear, and other public sector workers have made it clear, these independent pay review bodies are not independent. They're guided by the government. They're given a tight parameter of what they're prepared to offer. If MPs want to give a lead and show that they're committed to levelling up, then, as I said, you know, they should be standing as representatives of ordinary people, as public servants, and match their commitment with the average wage that most people are on. Let's remember what that is. That's just above 30 grand. That's the median average wage.